What are the pros and cons of filing married or filing separately? Considering it to reduce student loan payments. They have $200K in student loans, the lawyer, and my income is double my wife's. So they have $220K household income. A lot of information there, but what do you think about pros and cons of filing married versus filing separately?
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting one because in most scenarios, and Brian, you've been an accountant for like 100 years. So in most scenarios, when it comes to filing, it's often more advantageous to file married filing jointly than married filing separately. When you look at where the tax brackets are, when you look at credit exclusion, when you look at deduction availability, generally speaking, married filing jointly is more advantageous than married filing separately. But there are some unique scenarios, and we've seen this with some of our clients where when you actually run it and you look at the married filing jointly return versus the married filing separate return, there may be reasons why it might make sense to do that. One of them could potentially be student loan if you're on some sort of like income repayment plan or something like that, or you're trying to qualify for deductions that you would not qualify for otherwise. Here's what's really, really great about your question, because not knowing your specific situation, not knowing what your actual tax return looks like, we won't be able to tell you which is most advantageous. But most accountants and most softwares, even if you're self-filing, will allow you to test this. So you can actually run one iteration, married filing jointly, and you can see what the overall tax liability for the household is. And then you can change your election to married filing separately, and you can look and see, okay, what changes, what things adjust, what things are available versus not available had I filed the other way. And you can make a determination based on, okay, which one of these is going to make the most sense. But you just need to make sure that you recognize that there are things that will be affected by how you choose to file. For example, Roth eligibility or that sort of thing will change based on your filing status. So you want to look at your entire financial picture before you make that election.
Yeah, look, I like always sharing the fountain of knowledge, especially when the fountain of knowledge is fruitful. You're like, man, that was great that you shared that. But this was one. Because my answer is kind of your answer, Bo, is that I think you have to go just do the work.
You have to look
I
at
would
both.
go, I know all the professional softwares that I worked with in my 16 years of doing taxes, all allowed this feature where you could compare. It was just by clicking a button. As long as when you were setting up every one of the inputs, you better make sure you put the ownership. Is this an individual? Whose name is this in? Which spouse is this attributed to? Or is it joint? You have to basically divvy up all the income sources, but assuming you put all the inputs into the software correctly, usually there's a button you can click that lets you then compare and contrast these two different features. And it wouldn't surprise me. I'd love if somebody in the comments section, since it's a live show, tell us, does TurboTax let you do this? Because I just haven't had a lot of experience with Intuit or any of the others. I've dealt with their professionals, Lacert and other things, but to let us know. I will speak in terms of filing separately versus jointly. Typically, what I've experienced in my professional career is that somebody has to have something so bad going on that it stinks so bad that you don't want to be associated with it. And that's when you file separately. Like
it's more because of a behavioral thing than a strategic thing.
It's like if there's all kind of, like I'll go the extreme. Somebody's doing criminal stuff, you don't want to be filing a joint return with them. If somebody has tremendous debt to the point that they're probably filing bankruptcy and you don't want to attach your good financial record to it, you probably want to get away from that by filing separately. If somebody has tremendous risk in their life, maybe they're doing a job that is highly litigious and they can get in trouble, that's when you consider filing separately versus jointly, because you're just trying to, like I said, it's typically things that something smells so bad or has so much risk to it that you're trying to create as much separation from it as possible. And the reason that is because there's a lot of financial stuff that you miss out on when you file separately versus jointly. That's my take on it. And I hate that I can't give you a concise. I love it when I can definitively tell you, the 401k funding limit, once you're this age, is this, and do it, go and maximize it. This one, you're going to have to actually do the work and then actually see what the inputs come out as.
And I would encourage you, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Obviously, it sounds like for this question, one of the reasons you're trying to do it is so that you can drive down the required student loan repayment. And while that may make sense, that may be advantageous, make sure that singular goal that you have is not causing you to miss out on other things that could be happening inside of your financial picture. so often we see people get focused on one outcome or one goal or one strategy that they lose sight that there are other unintended consequences around that decision. So make sure you look at the total picture before you decide which way to file. And this might be a great time where it does make sense to work with a professional tax preparer who can give you the ins and outs about why you should or should not file one way or the other.
Well, that's why you'd have to do a tax projection or something that goes through the entire exercise because you just don't know what unintended consequences you might. Yes, it might help you on this student loan repayment, but then you might, mess up all kind of other things with, you had a capital gain or something that now gets allocated to one and you'll get to spread it. It could be a mess.